Can you tell which of these photos were taken with a smartphone and which were taken with a $5,000 camera? Smartphone makers for years have been telling us that our phones, especially the ones that have multiple cameras, are equivalent to carrying around a bunch of these heavy, expensive lenses. But is that really true? Well, after spending 6 months with a $5,000 Sony A7 Mark V camera plus lens and comparing it to my iPhone and Android phones, your phone actually has a lot more advantages than you might think. What are they? Well, first, your phone is more portable, and that actually matters a lot. You can take advantage of quick situations that you want to snap a photo of, like when a pet or kid does something unprompted right in front of you. With cameras, most of the time they're sitting away from you in a camera bag, causing you to miss moments like that. Another advantage your phone has is that it's water and dust resistant. Your iPhone's telephoto camera isn't going to get sand stuck in its focus ring or zoom part like this lens. Definitely that could happen. And your phone being waterproof allows you to put it in more situations where it can get splashed without much thought. Another big advantage is something like Find My support in the Find Hub, built right into modern phones so you can remotely disable them and track them if they're lost or stolen. With a camera, even one that can connect to Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, unless you put it in a rig that has a secret AirTag in it, that's $5,000 gone. And then the last big advantage your smartphone has over a $5,000 camera I found is that, well, you already have a phone, so it's not actually an extra device you need to buy, and more importantly, there's just not as big of a learning curve with taking photos on your phone as there is with a dedicated camera. My Sony A7 Mark V, for example, has so many different settings. It is impossible to remember what every feature does. Like 6 months in, I was using the electronic shutter on this camera and then just realized that when you enable that mode, it disables a setting that helps reduce noise. So that's a lot of advantages that phones have over cameras. But what about image and video quality? Well, that's probably where you would think a $5,000 camera has a huge advantage. Let's take a look back at those photos from the beginning of the video, though this time we'll fill in what camera each one was taken with. You'll see that you might not always be able to distinguish the phone from the dedicated camera, but typically, yeah, a dedicated camera will outperform your phone. There are two big reasons for this. First is the image sensor size. It's kind of the same principle as with Christopher Nolan's movie The Odyssey, which was entirely shot on 65mm IMAX film. 65mm is quite a bit larger than your typical 35mm film size. The larger 65mm size results in more detail, clarity, and allows more light to be brought into the camera. And that same principle applies when you compare the image sensor size of a dedicated camera and the image sensor size, which has to fit, behind one of these lenses on a smartphone. More light being allowed in also leads to a more shallow depth of field, which can give you better bokeh, which is the aesthetic quality of that background blur. While yes, smartphones do have some of this blur nowadays, and some try and fake it as best they can with portrait mode, it's really hard for phones to create great bokeh and a shallow depth of field in general because of that smaller sensor size, but also because of the constraints with lenses. And that's the second big advantage with dedicated cameras. You can swap out lenses depending on what you're shooting. You can use something like this 85mm portrait lens for portrait shots. Or you can get something like this zoom lens. You might want a wide shot 1 minute and then zoom in for more of a telephoto shot without losing resolution like you do when you just pinch and zoom on your phone. There are also dedicated macro lenses like the 90mm we use here on the channel, telephoto lenses, wide lenses. It just spans the gamut, and the quality of these lenses with their optical design is typically going to produce better results than your phone because, well, they're obviously not space constrained in the same way. Though with your phone, you don't have to switch lenses. This does give your phone another advantage because every time you switch a lens with a dedicated camera, you can introduce dust that potentially gets trapped on your sensor, which will show up in photos, and often you're going to need a tool like this little blower just to make sure there's no dust on the lens before you actually put it in the camera. I had this happen on my Iceland trip, and it was a pain in the having to remove the dust spots from all of the photos that I wanted to keep. Now, another big benefit this $5,000 camera has over your phone is actually the absence of what's called computational photography. Your phone is doing a lot of stuff in the background to try to get the best shot possible, but it's not always going to be great at doing that. If you've ever looked at a photo that your phone took and it looked just kind of bad, over sharp, or artificial in a way, like, where the hell did all the shadows go? You've likely been looking at the result of computational photography. Now, a $5,000 camera like this, when you put it on auto mode, it's going to make decisions for you like adjusting the ISO, which is the sensitivity of the image sensor, shutter speed, how fast the shutter closes, white balance, aperture, which dictates how much light is actually let into the lens. Now, your phone does all of that as well, but then it typically just goes way further. Making decisions around saturation, clarity, doing subject detection, where it'll make flowers look way more saturated than the rest of your image, or the sky look really blue. Now, a camera like this is not going to do that. It's going to try to capture what the thing that you're shooting actually looks like in that moment, and then it's going to let you make all those artistic decisions when you go in and edit the photos. Now, another potential advantage for your phone, though, is that you have access to your photos in your camera roll immediately, and the photos are pretty good to go after you take them. With dedicated cameras, some allow you to set up automatic downloading to your phone, but there's still more friction than with your smartphone, but I'd actually argue that friction can be a good thing. For important trips and family events, I actually really enjoy getting to go back and rediscover things that I shot, instead of just dumping all the photos that I take with my phone into Google Photos or Apple Photos. Introducing that friction kind of brings you back to just taking photos for yourself, for just your enjoyment, which is kind of how taking photos used to be before social media. Now, another thing that's actually better with this $5,000 camera is actually its larger size. When you're taking photos for long periods of time, I actually like the ergonomics of this a bit better, even though yes, it does weigh more. I just like things like where the shutter button is, being able to use the dials on the lens, and it's easier to grip than your phone. Also, most modern cameras nowadays have a flip-out screen that makes taking vlogs much easier, as well as just taking low or high-angle shots a lot easier than your phone as well. Plus, cameras with viewfinders can make composing your shot, especially in something like direct sunlight, a lot easier than a phone screen where you're going to get reflections and sometimes the screen can just even struggle to get bright enough. There's just a really nice physicality you get with this camera and other cameras that's just missing when you take photos on a phone. Even a phone that's made to use interchangeable lenses, like some of the new ones we've seen out of China, those just don't look as comfortable to actually hold. And then when you add in the concept of rigs and different lenses being built for them, at that point, I think people are just probably better off getting an actual camera, because another advantage an expensive dedicated camera can have over your smartphone is actually when it comes to overheating. There are cameras specifically made with active cooling with fans built into the camera so they can shoot continuously in a variety of environments where your phone will likely overheat trying to do the same. So, okay, maybe your smartphone doesn't beat a $5,000 camera in every category. I do think if you want to take your phone photography and videography to the next level, it is still absolutely worth getting a dedicated camera. Not only because this is a device that is often just nicer to shoot photos and videos on, and obviously the quality is going to be better, but the learning curve for these devices is going to force you to learn the fundamentals of photography and videography, which in turn will help you take better photos and videos on your phone. But it's not going to make sense for everybody to spend $5,000 on a camera plus lens. Thankfully, there are more affordable options worth considering. We already talked about TikTok's favorite camera, the Fujifilm X100VI, which doesn't have interchangeable lenses but is very portable for a dedicated camera. It's got an APS-C sensor, it looks great, and has all of these amazing tactile dials and buttons, one of which you can use to change the look of your photo, which makes it look more like film. Or you might want to consider a camera with interchangeable lenses that costs even less, like the Sony ZV-E10 Mark II. Or if you just want to go a step down from the A7 line, like my A7 Mark V here, Sony does also make the A6700, which has an APS-C sensor, but it does share some features like the AI stuff and autofocus with the A7 Mark V, and it'll still produce some great photos and videos. And when you hear APS-C, an APS-C sensor is smaller than a full-frame sensor, which is why image quality is typically better with full-frame sensors, and they're also better in low light. They're going to have better clarity, depth of field, etc. But at the same time, they're also typically way more expensive. Now, why do I have all of these Sony cameras? Well, Sony cameras for years have just been the best in class when it comes to video with their insanely good autofocus. That's primarily why I started shooting on Sonys. But that's by no means to say I only recommend Sony. Nikon, Canon, Fujifilm, and others make great dedicated cameras as well, and you should definitely check those out as well because each of these camera ecosystems has their own strengths and weaknesses. And I've left links to all of the cameras that I've mentioned in this video and some others I'd also just recommend checking out from other brands in the blog post in case you want to learn more or see prices of used or refurbished cameras, which is also another great way to get into the dedicated camera game. So those are all of my thoughts comparing a $5,000 camera to your phone. Let me know what you think in the comments after seeing this. Are you convinced that you want a $5,000 camera, a less expensive one, or are you just fine continuing to shoot on your phone? And to see more of my comparison videos like the MacBook Air and MacBook Neo or Samsung versus iPhone, you can get to those by clicking here or click here to see more of my reviews of tech products like my review of the Fujifilm X100VI or if Reddit's favorite $4,000 fridge is actually worth it. For 6 months later, I'm Josh Tedder, and if you made it all the way to the end here, let me know by commenting bokeh. Thanks for watching.